So, like I said, national income. This is one of the strongest area which a country actually looks forward to. Like, for example, let us take our own case before getting into the nation or the country specific or what you say for the macro level. Let's think about ourselves. Most of us would be an employee or a business person or maybe a student who aspire to earn something in the future or would be actually earning something right now. So we why do we have to consider the income part, personal side? We look at our own income, or so people look into income because it is this income with which we are planning our future. For example, if I earn 10,000 today, if my salary is 10,000 today, I would be planning my future on the basis of this 10,000 rupees which I am earning today. The same way, a country will also be preparing its futuristic plan, and for that, it needs an indicator. That is where national income becomes important. It is not just for the planning, there are many things ahead, but as an introduction to this topic, a gist of what we are going to discuss, this is what I would like to say. A country, or like we need to know our income to plan our future, a country should also have an idea about what its actual income is, and it is based on this indicator that it plans for its future. Its future means the people who are residing in the country, the businesses that are part of the country, and also the government. So I'm starting the session. Now, national income. Let us not directly get into national income. National income or this topic is actually part of economics. Now, what is economics? Economics is something that deals with scarce resources. Now, Adam Smith, who is regarded as the father of economics, he said that resources are scarce and human needs are unlimited. Like if we see around us, we have very limited resources or very limited availability of resources, but our needs are so much that we cannot force. Economics says how to deal with the scarce resources in the best possible manner or optimum utilization of scarce resources. That is why economics is very important in our day-to-day life. Like, for example, if we have just 1 liter of water, we need to know how to spend that 1 liter of water in our day-to-day life. If we don't have any facility to get more than 1 liter of water, but we need to survive one full day, we will be taking sip by sip water because we know there is no other water resource available. And we plan accordingly. From morning till evening, I'll be drinking this much amount of water so that I can survive. So that is actually an economic policy or economics. That's an economics concept that we follow in our day-to-day life. So economics gains importance because we need to know how to utilize our scarce resources, that too in the best possible manner. Now, when it comes to the economics part, there are 3 segments or 3 people, 3 entities we can say, who are part of this utilization of resources. They are individuals, like people like us. There are businesses who use these resources. You can see businesses around us make use of resources. And of course, government is also using. So individuals, businesses, and governments are the main entities who make choices or decisions how to allocate resources during scarcity. Like Adam Smith said, we have resources scarce. Our resources are almost scarce. So every day we will see some kind of scarcity. So these 3 people make choices, individual choices, how to allocate these resources. And this resources will be allocated in such a manner that there will be production of something, the distribution of something, and the consumption of something. And this something is goods and services. Or, for example, the products that we use, the services that we utilize. So how to produce these goods and services, how to distribute these goods and services, and how to consume these goods and services, considering the best possible manner and by meeting the demands of the people. Every day our demands are increasing, and so we need to know how to utilize this, and this is how the economics flow forms. And in general, we say there are 2 types of economics. One is microeconomics and the other is macroeconomics. You would be wondering why I am giving an introduction to micro and macroeconomics. This is because we should really understand where this national income falls. For this, understanding economics and the types of economics is important. So when it comes to micro, like the term micro means very mini or small. So microeconomics is that part of economics which deals with decisions made by individual consumers. Consumers are people who use or finally use goods and services. For example, I have a mobile phone in my hand. I am using it. So I am the consumer of this mobile phone. There is nobody else that I'm going to give this to. So I am the end user of this mobile phone, which means I am the individual consumer. And there is a producer also for this. So decisions made by individual consumers and producers are actually dealt in microeconomics. Coming to macroeconomics, macro means the bigger picture. It's the wide picture. That is where an entire economy comes. Like I have a mobile phone. There are many people who have mobile phones in our country. So in India alone, how many people are using mobile phones, or how many people are consuming the services of telecommunication or mobile phones? All these are known through macroeconomics, and anything related to nation or an entire economy, we generally call it as economy. So any decisions taken by an entire economy falls under macroeconomics, and this can be in national and international levels. And national income is part of macroeconomics. It's not part of the microeconomic session. So because national income means the income of the entire nation. So it will definitely come under macroeconomics. And before moving again into the national income part, I would also like to let you know how money flows in an economy, because we need to understand how this money is flowing. And before that, I would also like to give a general introduction to a term called factors of production. In economics, we generally call this term factors of production. We have 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. So land means the land resources that we have. Labor means human resources. We are all laborers. So sorry to that. So human resources, land, labor. Capital means the money flow, the capital required to start a business, or capital required to invest into a business. All those falls under capital. And the 4th one is entrepreneur. We need to have entrepreneurs to run firms. Only then there will be some kind of businesses being conducted and some kind of goods and services being produced, and the economy should run in such a manner. So these are factors of production. So when you look into this picture, you can see so many arrow marks and firms and household and the opposite side. So let's see the blue arrow, which goes from households to firms, the below one. As you can see, it's written factors of production. So it is from the households. I'm explaining how this flow of income happens. So households is where you can see this laborers, etc., and even the capital, entrepreneurs, etc. So from households, these factors of production get into firms, and when the firms utilize it in the best possible manner, that is how goods and services, goods means products, goods and services are being generated. And when goods and services are being produced, it again moves into households, because people reside there. Household means people. So people use it, and when they use it or consume it, consumption, there is an expenditure that we incur. So when we buy a product, for example, if I buy a mobile phone, this money is my expenditure, and this goes into the firm, which is explained by the red arrow, from households to money, to the firm, from households to the firm. So there is a money flow from household to the firms, and when the firms get such income, only then they will be able to pay salary, rent, electricity bills, dividends, wages, etc. to people, and these people take this income back to household. So this is how flow of income happens in a particular economy. Now this is a standard situation. Now we also have like open economy concept. Open economy means an economy which participates in national and international trade. For example, India is an open economy because it is not just depending on the domestic firms, or trade. It is also depending on other countries. It deals with international trade with other countries. So such countries are generally called open economies. So in open economy, there is one more person, the government, which comes into the flow of income, because it is the government to which we pay the taxes, or taxes on goods and services and taxes on personal. We have two kinds of taxes in India, direct and indirect. I would not be getting much into that, but just overview, I would say we pay taxes on a personal way, and also we pay taxes on goods and services. And when the government gets these taxes, they provide it as subsidies to households and businesses, and utilize the funds for the economic development of the nation. So in an open economy, the flow of income happens from household to business to government and vice versa. And this is how the money is circulating in the economy. And with this circulation of money, there is some kind of expenditures being happening. There are some kind of income being generated, and all these fall into national income of a country. Now, getting into national income. What is national income? National income is nothing but the total value of final services and goods produced within an economy during a specific period. Now, as you can see, I have highlighted certain terms: total value, final services and goods within an economy, and specified period of time. Now, national income says that we must consider the final goods and services. Now, goods and services can be in work in process or in the final process. So we consider every final goods and services which is produced in this country during a particular year, which means it's a financial year. And what is the total value? Total value in the sense, what is the total money value or the monetary value of such products and services which is being produced in a particular time period in a country within an economy. So when it comes to national income, what you need to understand is you need to have an idea about the total value of what? Of final goods and services. We do not consider mid-processing or unfinished or raw materials which is getting into production. We only consider the final goods and services we as consumers use during a particular period of time and within this economic territory of a particular country. Since I belong to India, I always speak about my country. So in India, what is the total value of final goods and services produced within a specific period of time? That is what we call as national income. Now, why should we actually know national income? It means when there are more products available, there is more production happening. Now, for example, consider last year, there were only 10,000 mobile phones being produced by some company. But this year, they have actually planned to produce 1 lakh mobile phones, which will mean that they will require more people to work for it. So there is more employment opportunities being generated. And when there is more employment opportunities being generated, there is more income flowing into the individuals, and thereby these individuals contribute to the economic development of the country. So only when now, for this company which produced 10,000 mobile phones last year, if it has to produce 1 lakh mobile phones this year, it should also have the facilities to do so. And for that, the income of the country should be increasing. When the national income of a country is increasing, it indicates there is positive growth in the country. So there is a positive growth, and due to this positive growth, there are outputs of firms. Outputs implies the final goods and services. There are more products and services coming from the country's firms, and because of which there are more employment opportunities being created. More employment opportunities implies there is more income getting into the hands of people. It does not mean that there is increase in salary. It means that, for example, if last year there were only 1,000 people employed, this year there are 20,000 people employed. So which means there are 20,000 people who are earning money. There is an increase of 19,000 people this year who are actually earning some kind of salary. And with this increase in the income of the economy, there is overall progress in the economy. So understanding national income is very important. And the basic purpose, why should I understand national income? Okay, let the economy progress or let employment opportunities increase. But then what is the purpose of national income. It is after calculating this national income that the governments actually formulate policies and programs to maximize the national welfare of the people. For example, if we take the case of India, at least for the last 10 to 15 years, we have many companies like foreign companies coming into our country and investing a lot of amount. For example, Google, we have offices of Google here. We have Amazon coming into India. We have many automotive companies, new cars, new branded cars coming to our country and setting up their production facilities. It's all because they are finding India as a progressing nation. There is more income or there is more national income being generated. And for such companies to come in, the government should actually formulate some welcoming policies like foreign direct investments or subsidies or taxes or some kinds of allowances, etc. So only when the country knows about this national income, it will be able to formulate these policies and procedures for attracting domestic as well as international firms and people to come into the country and work within the country, and which can improve the national welfare of the people. So national income's basic purpose is to give the insight on aggregate output and income and help the government to formulate policies and procedures. In India, it is the Central Statistical Organization or the CSO which actually computes the national income. Every year, this organization computes national income for our country and produces the report. Now, there are different methods for calculating national income. This I'll be taking in the following upcoming sessions. I would just give an overview to it. We have three methods to calculate national income. It can be either through product method, it can be either through income method or through expenditure method. Now, why is there a three kind of method? Why should we calculate national income using three methods? Is it different results that we get out of this, or is it the same? Now, why should we have three methods of national income is explained over here. I was talking about national income as the total value of produced goods and services in a country within a specific year, and the monetary value is what we consider. So there is this production phase, which means there are the business firms in a country which actually handles production of goods and services. So if a country wants to know from the production perspective how much income is being generated, they can go forward with the product method. So when goods and services are actually produced, it generates income to the factors of production, which is the land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. And based on this income generated to the factors of production, the economy can actually calculate its national income, which is called as the product method. Now, once this product is produced, it is actually moving into the market. It is distributed among the factors of production, and this is in the form of factor income. For example, when this is getting distributed, some kind of a money flow is happening, and the companies or the business firms are actually able to pay rent, salary, profits, dividends, etc. to the people involved in it or the entities involved in it. So there is income flow happening with this distribution. There is some kind of an income being generated or factor of income being produced or given to such factors of production. And national income can be calculated considering this income alone, the income which is generated to the factors of production, generally called as factor income. So if we consider the factor income alone, the national income can be calculated, and this is done using the income method. And once this is distributed, it ultimately comes, the goods and services ultimately comes into the hands of the final consumers. Like I was saying, if I am purchasing a smartphone and I am using it, I am the final consumer of that product. So from my perspective, what is the national income? Or considering consumers like me, what is the income generated to the country? That is calculated using the disposition or the expenditure method. Expenditure means to buy this particular product, say my smartphone itself, I have incurred some kind of an expenditure, say 10,000 or 20,000. So if there are 1 lakh or 1 billion people who are consuming such a product, they would have spent some money on it. It's called as the expenditure. So considering that expenditure alone, what is the income generated to the country in that manner? This is calculated using the expenditure method. Now, if any kind of calculations or any method you follow, the national income will be the same, either under product method or income method or the expenditure method. All the final results will be the same, because the national income of a country cannot differ according to production, distribution, or disposition. It is only that if a country wants to know what is its income from a production perspective, or what is its income from a distribution perspective, what is its income from a disposition perspective, it can go forward with that particular calculation. That is why we have three types of methods to calculate national income. Now, national income, you will not see any news or any information saying national income of India is this much, or national income of US is this much, or national income of any other economy is this much. We have certain terminologies which is very commonly used by the statistical organizations or the government or the related authorities, and one among them is GDP. We always hear about this GDP. So we have different metrics to indicate or say, talk about national income. One of the most famous one is GDP, or the gross domestic product. Now, recently, while I was going through a report of World Economic Forum released in October 2022, it's like 6 to 7 months back, the World Economic Forum actually produced a report stating that India is the fifth largest economy in the world, and it has beaten United Kingdom. United Kingdom fell to sixth position. Now India is the fifth largest economy. And how did it derive India as the fifth largest economy? It was in terms of GDP. So the the IMF, India International Monetary Fund, and the World Economic Forum were saying that considering the GDP per capita, or GDP of India, it is the fifth largest economy in the world. And it was 10 years back, or a decade ago, it was at the 11th position. So from 11th, 10 years back, now India has reached to fifth largest position, and they have also set a forecast of 7% this year. And IMF sees by 2027, IMF says that India should be the fourth largest economy in terms of GDP. So why I took this news is because everywhere and anywhere you will be seeing this particular term called GDP for analyzing a economy's growth. So GDP is one of the strongest indicators of national income. And as you can see, this is a report from Statista, which shows India's growth rate. This is how the GDP is shown graphically. Why is it shown graphically? Is because there are people who cannot understand what GDP is, or if you give it in figures, maybe they won't understand. But if we show it in a graphical image, it's easier for people to understand. So coming to 1980, you can see the orange line, which is for India. It was below UK, which is the blue line. It was below UK. And till almost 2021, India was below UK. But by 2020-21 or 21-22, India's growth rate has overseen UK's, and projection is also going positive for India and going down with UK. So I can, looking at this graph, I can say that the national income of India is actually increasing in terms of GDP. If I consider the national income of India in terms of GDP, the country is actually progressing, and moving forward by 2027, it is actually progressing better than a developed economy like UK. So now, what is this GDP, or the gross domestic product? So there is this term called domestic. That is the differentiator in GDP. So domestic means which is within the country. It is the same, as you can see, it is almost the same definition which we have used in national income. So GDP is the market value of all finished goods and services produced within a country and in a financial year. So what has changed here is that it includes values of products and services produced in a considered. So there is this term called produced, with final goods and services, which is produced goods. So we need to understand what is the difference between finished goods, produced goods, and other kinds of goods. So produced goods is nothing but the finished goods and services itself, which is being produced within the country. Now, for example, if I'm an Indian and I'm going to UAE, I am setting up a business firm there, and I have some kind of products being manufactured over there. Such productions will never count into my country's production. like produce goods and services. I will take the case of smartphone itself. If I am manufacturing a smartphone in UAE, I'm an Indian national, but I'm going to UAE and producing some mobile phones over there. Such produced goods and services do not come in India's production. So in order to consider GDP, we need to have this produced goods and services within our country or within that particular economic's territory. So any finished goods and services, again, I'm highlighting the term finished goods and services, which is produced within an economy during a financial year. Like I was saying, in India, it's 1st April to 31st March. Generally, financial years follow this time frame. So any finished good which is produced within the territory of a particular a country, and considering its market value, every thing is should be monetized. So for example, take the case of smartphones. If there are 1 lakh mobile phones being produced in India, and 1 lakh, the market value of those mobile phones is 1,000 rupees. So 1 lakh into 1,000 will be the GDP of our country, because it is produced within the country and it is coming under the domestic territory of India, and it is also a finished good. So we calculate GDP in that manner. This is one of the simplest example that I have used. We have other formulas also, but I'm not getting into those sophisticated formulas right now. So in a very simple term, I can say if there are 1 lakh mobile phones manufactured in India as finished goods, and if it is being sold at 10,000 rupees, the GDP of the country will be 1 lakh into 10,000. And we also have this concept of nominal GDP, real GDP, and GDP per capita. Nominal GDP is nothing but the change in GDP at a very nominal rate. For example, the mobile phone was costing 10,000 rupees previous year. If it is costing 13,000 this year, the change is 3,000 rupees. Now that 3,000 rupees will be the GDP growth rate. That's what nominal GDP says. But there is an issue with this nominal GDP because it does not consider factors like imports, exports, or inflation, etc., or any kind of recessions, any kind of macroeconomic influences. It is just considering the monetary value of that finished good. It will say like if there is 10,000 previous year and 13,000 this year, there has been an increase of 3,000 rupees, which means India is progressing. But without considering any other external or internal factors, saying such growth rate is actually not good. So we get into real GDP. There is a calculation under real GDP, and real GDP, what it does it considers a base year. For example, 2010, and to 2010, the monetary value of a mobile phone was 10,000. Now coming into 2022, what is the rate of change, or what is the growth rate happening in GDP? So under real GDP method, what we normally do is we consider this particular year. For example, 2023, it's not yet over. So 22-23 year, if I can find like 1 lakh mobile phones have been produced. So this 1 lakh mobile phone, I will divide that amount with the base year's market price, which was 10,000. Like it was 10,000 rupees in 2010 for the mobile phone. And in 2023, there were 1 lakh mobile phones produced. So what is the growth rate? To understand the growth rate, I divide this 1 lakh by 10,000. And that particular value, if it is increasing, like for example, in 2017, it was 7%. And in 2023, 22-23, it was 10%. There has been an increase. If the real GDP says so, considering a base year, then we say that calculation is actually giving a real idea into the GDP progress of a country. Now, there is another issue in real GDP as well, like a country. So when the products and services are increasing, and at the same time, if population is also growing, then this real GDP or nominal GDP cannot give a clear picture of the progress. There is where we use this term per capita. Per capita means it will divide the country's GDP by its total population. So it will consider the population growth as well. But generally in calculations, we follow real GDP method because it considers a base year and all the micro and macroeconomic factors affecting the country. and it will produce a better result. So GDP is nothing but the gross domestic product or final goods and services produced within a country during a particular financial year. Now, in this GDP, I never mentioned about people who are working abroad. Like we have many people, many Indians are considering our Keralites itself. We have many people working in UAE who are Indian nationals and working there and sending money back to the country. GDP does not consider these amount. So what if we do not consider this amount? It is not going to give a clear picture about our country. Now that is where the next indicator called gross national product comes into the picture. So gross national product, it considers the income generated by the businesses and residents of the country inside and outside the country, which means we consider the people living abroad who are sending money back to the country, or the businesses who are sending back to the money back to our country. So GNP considers the total value of goods and services produced by the residents as well as businesses of a country, irrespective of the location of the production. It is only necessary that I need to be a resident of a country and should be contributing to the country's income. So GNP considers the foreign income as well, which comes into the country. Now, before moving into the calculation, there are two terms called market price and factor cost. Everywhere when you look into the measure or the books, you will see market price and factor price. GNP at market price, GDP at factor price. So what is this market price and factor price? Market price is nothing but like we normally go to a supermarket or a shop and we get a product. So we buy it at a market price. We see it as MRP, retail price, or the maximum retail price, or the market price which is available for, which is mentioned on that product. So market price is the final value of the good. It is the price that a buyer actually pays to purchase the commodity. So if I am the buyer and if I am paying some 1,000 rupees to purchase some product, that will be known as market price. Now, what is factor price? This market price actually includes some kind of a profit added by the firm and other expenditures or other margins which is added. That's how we decide the market price. But there is a production cost incurred for producing that particular product. So factor cost is the total value of inputs that go into the manufacturing of a good, and it concerns each of the factors of production. Now, gross national product, as I was saying, this gross national product can be calculated at market price as well as factor cost. So market price, when it is calculated at market price, it is the final value of goods and services by the normal residents of a country plus the net factor income from abroad. So GNP at market price is calculated by considering GDP of market price and adding net factor income from abroad to that GDP, which means the residents' income as well as the people outside living the country, their income is also added to the national income. So GNP at market price is GDP at market price plus net factor income from abroad. And if it is at factor cost, like I was saying, we consider production or the production cost that is actually going into the final goods and services. So there is some kind of an indirect taxes which is getting added to that particular product. So after we calculate GNP at market price, we reduce net indirect taxes incurred by such products or services, and we derive it gross national product at factor cost. So factor cost means the cost actually that has gone into the production of that particular product or service. So in order to derive that, we will have to consider the income from domestic as well as income from abroad, add up those values and reduce the net indirect taxes which has been incurred by that particular entity. And once we do this, we derive it GNP at factor cost. Now, all these, this GDP and the GNP, they have only considered the gross national product or the gross domestic product in the country. But when we look around, there is something called depreciation which is being incurred by the businesses. GNP or GDP does not consider this depreciation part. So it does not give a pure idea about national income. So we have another measure called net national product. which is actually GNP less the depreciation. So once we derive a GNP, and if we reduce the depreciation of those capital goods, we derive at the net national product. The term net implies a gross minus depreciation. So net national product is nothing but gross national product minus the depreciation and the monetary value of goods and services that the citizens of a country, both in the country and abroad, which are produced within a given period. So the only element which is getting added to net national product is the depreciation element. And again, this NNP can be calculated at factor cost as well as at market price. So at market price, how this NNP is calculated? First, we derive at GNP at market price and reduce depreciation from it. We derive at a net national product at market price. Now, if you need to get this particular figure into factor cost, you should also reduce net indirect taxes. So when GNP at market price is considered and the net indirect taxes minus depreciation is added to it, we derive at net national product at factor cost. And this net national product at factor cost is actually known as the national income of a country. So whenever you hear this term national income, you should understand that there are so many produced goods and services within our country by people residing here as well as abroad within a particular financial year. And at factor cost, after considering the net indirect taxes and depreciation, after reducing this from this gross national product, we derive at a particular amount, and that particular amount is called as the national income of a country. And national income, if it is showing a positive result, for example, the national income of a particular country, if it was 10%, if it was 1% in 2010, and if it is 7% in 2023, it means that it is progressing from 1% to 7%. There has been an increase. So it means that the country is progressing. But at the same time, if you see reports like the national income or the NNP or GNP or GDP of a country is falling from 2.2 to minus 0.7, it means that there is a fall in the national income of that country. Fall in the national income will mean that it will lead to less number of products and services in the country, less number of employment facilities, and less income getting into the hands of the people, which means the country itself is going into a recession or a depression stage. So a country to progress should have positive national income growth. And with this, I come to an end to this session. As I said, it's just an introduction part. There is yet more to come into national income, computations, many other indicators. I have only mentioned about DGP, NNP, and GNP in this session, as I did not want you people to get confused. So thank you all.